So what's the difference between an executor and an administrator in Georgia?
Hey guys, I'm Brad, the Probate House Guy. Thanks for checking out this video today. By the way, I am an active real estate investor and a licensed real estate agent in the state of Georgia. And over the last 10 years, I have helped over 300 sellers get their property sold, whether that's a cash deal or listing it for them in the traditional fashion. I made all these videos because we've learned a thing or two about probate and estates over the last 10 years, and I'm just sharing my knowledge with you. By the way, I am not an attorney, nor do I claim to be an attorney, so please don't take anything that I say as legal advice. I highly suggest that you consult with a probate attorney or even a real estate attorney to discuss your unique situation and get some real legal advice from them. If you'd like to chat with us about the options on the property that you've inherited, we'd be happy to talk to you about that. You can go over to probatehouseguy.com and fill out the form there on the page, and a member of our team will be in touch with you ASAP. Anyways, let's get back to the video. Thanks.
Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Brad, the Probate House Guy. So an executor or an administrator, what's the difference in the state of Georgia when it comes to probate? Well, really, they're kind of almost the same thing with some subtle differences. So let's start with an executor. So in most cases, an executor is going to come into play when there is a will, when there's a valid will. The will has been deemed valid by the court. The will names an executor, and that's the personal representative of the estate. That's the person that the decedent or the one who died has appointed to be in charge of their estate when they pass away. For example, when my parents passed away, I've been named as the executor in their will. We also set up a trust, and I'm actually the trustee of their trust. So hopefully we don't even have to go through probate because we had a trust created for all of their assets. Additionally, when I pass away, I've appointed my wife to be executor of my estate. So in the case where there is a will, you appoint an executor, and that will generally grants that executor specific powers and authorities. And then basically the probate court, after they've reviewed the will and determined whether it's valid or not, they sort of reinforce and approve those powers or authorities. And at that point, that executor can then, sell the assets and do all of the other things. Now, there may be a case where your will is not deemed valid, and you may end up having to file for what's called an administration, and in which case you would get appointed as administrator. But I'm not going to get into all the details of that situation. All right, let's flip the script here and let's go over to administrator. What is an administrator versus an executor? So an administrator is generally when there's no will involved. That's also called intestate in the state of Georgia. And an administrator is also a personal representative of the estate, but generally that is a volunteer role or an appointed role by the heirs, or sometimes by the state as well. So in cases where there is no will, the heirs at law would decide to appoint an administrator, someone in charge of the estate. That person could be one of the heirs, or they could be another party. It could really be anybody that you want to appoint to be the administrator, but the heirs at law of this particular estate would appoint an administrator, and that person would petition the courts to grant them the powers to basically deal with this estate, right? They're ultimately, once they get their letters of administration, they will, have the power to sell assets and open bank accounts and do basically all the things that an executor can do in most cases. Now, there are some situations where the court might not grant certain powers to an administrator, but that we're not going to get into the weeds on that today. Additionally, most people don't realize this, but sometimes the court may appoint an administrator. We've seen that happen before. Maybe heirs are fighting about something and they can't come to an agreement, and ultimately the court basically just appoints a third party as an administrator. And there are people that are actually the court has like kind of a list, and a lot of them are attorneys, and they agree to act as administrator, and they actually get paid to do that. They get to charge a fee for that. So keep that in mind. But sometimes the court may appoint an administrator, or in cases where there might be someone who passed away that does not have any heirs, and in which case their assets are going to escheat, is the legal term to that, escheat to the state, because they don't have any heirs at law. The court may appoint a third-party administrator to administrate the estate and publish all the notices and that sort of thing, so that the state can handle that particular property or the assets of the estate. Additionally, a creditor, most people don't realize this, but a creditor in the state of Georgia can also petition to open administration for someone's estate. Let's say usually they're only going to do that when there's a very sizable debt involved, but I've seen it happen before where someone from XYZ bank petitions to get administration, in which they're then going to sell the assets of the estate and then basically get their debts repaid, because maybe there's some outstanding debt that hasn't been paid and no one so far has come forward to petition to administer this estate. So the bank or the creditor steps in, and they can do that in the state of Georgia. So those are that's the 30,000 foot view on the difference between an administrator and an executor here in the state of Georgia. I hope that was helpful to you. If you've inherited a property and you are interested in selling that property, we'd be happy to chat with you about that. We do buy properties for cash. We've been buying houses for cash here in the state of Georgia for the last 10 years. I have helped hundreds and hundreds of sellers sell their properties the easy way and get the quick, easy, fast cash offer. And also on this hand, I'm also a licensed real estate agent. If you didn't already know that, I hang my license with One Source Real Estate out of Woodstock, Georgia. So if you want to chat about maybe listing the property in the traditional fashion, we can talk about that as well. Either way, whether you want a cash offer or you want to chat with us about listing the property, you can go over to probatehouseguy.com, fill out the form there on the page, and a member of our team will be in touch with you ASAP. Thanks again for watching this video. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.